Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. From the latest science dishes, breakout stars, and all the news in between. As always, guys, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Alex.
Hey, I'm Anthony.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
It's cold outside.
It's cold outside, but it's warm in here.
It's very cold.
Remember the awesome air conditioning we got this summer when it was super hot and it was cool in here? Well, we came in today, and weirdly, to our surprise, heat was on.
Oh.
I didn't know it had heating capabilities.
Wow.
He just said air conditioner.
That's some Lex level type of stuff.
Next level.
That's what I said, next level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, today we're talking college football. We're going to talk the first of this year's college football playoff rankings. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll do our Wide Left Wednesday segment. We'll do the same thing, take a break, come back, and we'll talk For Real, in which we all talk about somebody or some team or something that is looking to be pretty impressive, but can they maintain that significant success? But we're going to start with the college football playoffs. As Jeremiah and I called, the first three, as we said, was Alabama, Clemson, and Michigan flipped. So Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Michigan 3. Now, we did say something like this could happen, but it was up for debate as to who would do so. Washington got jumped, and they currently sit at 5. And Texas A&M moved into the 4 spot, coming in as the final playoff team there at 4. Ohio State runs out the top 6 there as the first 2 out, Washington and Ohio State. What were your thoughts when you saw this list? I will start with you, Jeremiah.
I was actually kind of surprised Texas A&M kind of jumped over Washington. I thought Ohio State would be the team to do it.
I will tell you why that didn't happen. Texas A&M lost to Alabama. Ohio State lost to Penn State. Strength of loss makes it a better loss in the eyes of the voters. That is purely my reasoning as to why they jumped into the top 4.
Okay, and I completely understand that, but I still think if Ohio State and Michigan would go head-to-head, which they are in the last week of the season, I think Ohio State's a better team. And I do think that would jump Ohio State at the end of the year. And I'm not surprised that Washington got jumped out of the top 4. I kind of saw that happening, due to their weaker schedule and their upcoming schedule, so to speak. So even if they go undefeated, they're going to have to root for Texas A&M to pretty much lose at least once, or Ohio State for that matter, because I think they can practically jump over them too.
Well, Ohio State to end the year has Michigan State and Michigan, so if they were to win both of those games, they'd probably be looked at as one of the more favorites to get in the top 4. Anthony?
So that's the thing. Basically, you're looking at something where the strength schedule for Washington wasn't that good. You look at Texas A&M; they have that one loss to Alabama, which you can basically forgive because it's Alabama, and Alabama's basically just destroying everybody this year. They had some hard games coming up, but even though they're facing a ranked Auburn team and a ranked LSU team, you assume they're going to go undefeated. So that one loss to Texas A&M, it surprised me because I figured Washington, since they were undefeated, wouldn't get jumped by a team that has a loss, even though the loss isn't that bad of a loss. You look at the games that Texas A&M has coming up, they're not necessarily the hardest, you would say. The no one is ranked until you get to LSU in the last week of the season, Mississippi State, Mississippi. So you look at all those kind of things, you would basically, if you're Washington, right, because assuming they beat out Cal, even though that's probably going to be like a 50-45 kind of game the way Cal's been playing, even though they got USC, Washington State, they have some, They have
Arizona State also.
Arizona State too, yeah. So at least the Washington State game, if they're still undefeated, right, if they're still undefeated by that time and they beat Washington State,
Then they have the Pac-12 championship, which as of right now would be Colorado.
Probably Colorado, yeah. And by that point, then you basically, assuming Washington State is still winning, you'll face two top 25 ranked teams. At that point, you would assume they would leapfrog whoever, because maybe those two victories are enough to vault them, because Texas A&M is going to go to the SEC championship game because they're in the same division as Alabama. Alabama would face Tennessee or Florida, however that shakes out. If you're Washington, you want Texas A&M to lose. You want Ohio State to probably lose. Louisville, you can jump past. That probably doesn't matter. And the same thing, I don't think Wisconsin's going to, because with the two losses, I don't think they're going to get anywhere close. Mm-hmm. Washington is that thing, though, of, and at this point, obviously, we're just guessing, but you would assume if they played Alabama or Michigan or Clemson, Ohio State, however that goes, it wouldn't go well from them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would guess, like, if this kind of shakes out, they would kind of slide back the other way, because if Texas A&M wins, but they barely win a game, and if Washington just blows out Cal and they just blow out Washington State, maybe in the eyes of the voters that looks a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Right now it doesn't matter as much. It's just a surprising thing to see off the bat that the team that was undefeated wouldn't get the chance to play in the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you on that.
And there's something I wanted to point out where you said, Anthony, you said, what if like Texas A&M barely, beats their upcoming opponents, and then Washington happens to blow out all their opponents, which are pretty good offenses by the way that they're about to play in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Right.
Well, don't forget Ohio State plays Nebraska this Saturday. Mm-hmm. They're a good team, top 10 team right there, and then they have Michigan State and Michigan 10 years. So I do think Ohio State is a more likely candidate to jump over Texas A&M and Washington because of basically their schedule. And I know Texas A&M's in SEC, but they got Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Ole Miss has not looked good at all, especially in any of their losses. Mm-hmm. And they have LSU, which they kind of they came back a little bit last couple of weeks. They are the 13 ranked team. That's probably, the tougher opponent right there because of the SEC. But Michigan, they've been really tough all year long. Michigan State, I know they kind of fell off, but, they still play teams tough. And they play, they play Nebraska and Ohio State. So that's why I think these three opponents compared to the other opponents for Texas A&M and Washington, I do think that gives Ohio State a chance to jump over to 4.
But do you think so? Like, let's say Ohio State wins out, right? Let's say Ohio State wins out against Michigan and everybody else. And let's say that game against Michigan is a close game, and Michigan at that point is undefeated. Like, I don't think there would be the two. I don't think Michigan and Ohio State both make it to the college football final.
That'd be really
like one
hard.
Team would probably have to follow.
Really
if it's a really close game and Ohio State only had one loss at that point and Michigan was undefeated, and they both have one loss and it was really, really, really close at that point, like maybe, but I would assume one of them would fall out.
Yeah, that's going to be hard, but I do think there's a slight chance that both of these teams can make it.
They could.
Exactly, because Ohio State, they do have that loss to Penn State, and if Michigan happens to lose to Ohio State very close, I do think there's a good chance for both of these teams to be in the top 4. Texas A&M, they do have a great chance. They practically came out of nowhere this season, and they have that one loss to Alabama, which is practically a strong loss.
But at that point, if you take Texas A&M, you're taking a team. You'd be 2 SEC teams to the top 4 to the college football playoff, one of which they didn't even win the conference in Texas A&M. So it's
exactly, and they're not going to go to the conference game because they can't. That's why I don't see this team going to be in the 14,
right,
so to speak. It's going to be hard for me to have Texas A&M there the whole entire year. And Washington, they have just a weak schedule. I said this plenty of times. If they happen to go to the playoffs, they're going to get steamrolled no matter who they play. And they're most likely going to play Alabama because it goes 1-4, 2-3. They're going to get steamrolled. They're going to get crushed.
You would assume so.
Yeah.
But
they can't. I don't think they compete with any of these 3 teams ahead of them. That includes Texas A&M and Ohio State. So,
one thing I wanted to say about Ohio State before we move on. Ohio State faces number 10 Nebraska this weekend.
Right.
And they win that game. Mm-hmm. That's impressive because also Penn State beat them. Penn State currently is ranked 12th.
Exactly.
So the strength of that loss, if they continue winning, is a little better. They
So
face Iowa this week, so it could look better than that.
So they got
and then
room
you
for-
have Michigan and Michigan State. If they were to win out, those are impressive wins, and that loss becomes more impressive if Penn State can.
Yeah, Penn State.
It's no loss to Alabama, but
Yeah, so Ohio State basically has room for Penn State now too, as well. So.
exactly. And then they have to control their own destiny and win these last 4 weeks. So.
Penn State looked really good last week too in their win.
Yeah, they did. They didn't look bad at all. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there. They beat Purdue 62-24. Anyways, we're going to move on. We're going to take our first break. We're going to come back and do our Wide Left segment here in just a moment at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and it's time for our Wide Left segment, a segment that is all about things that made us laugh in the world of football this past weekend. So I'm going to start, and it didn't necessarily make me laugh, but it made me feel bad for the guy.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah,
It
so
really did.
those of you who know Niall Davis started the season on the Kansas City Chiefs roster. You know, they decided about 2 weeks ago, they said, we have Jamal Charles back. Spencer Ware's playing great. Kendrick West is a little bit more of a power kind of back. D'Anthony Thomas can always play that scat back role if we need him to. He played running back in college. He's been more of a receiver in his time here in the NFL. But you know what? We have guys. We're going to give you a shot. We're going to trade you to the running back needy Packers. They lost Mr. Lacey. They lost James Starks. They have a practice squad player up. You'll probably get some good time there if you fit the system. Okay, cool. Gets traded to the Packers on October 18th. He played in 2 games. He carried the ball only 5 times for 5 yards. And on Monday, he was sent packing by the Packers. They waived him. Well, yesterday, a team named the New York Jets claimed Niall Davis. They claimed him because, Matt Forte, he's dealing with some problems. He has a chronic knee injury. Powell, he has turf toe currently. They've been dealing with injuries. So, let's get some depth at the running back position. Niall Davis has been around. He knows a lot of systems. He's a good contributor on special teams. We saw a kick return in the playoff game last year against the Texans. He's an athlete. So they sign him. About 6 hours later, the Jets waived him also. Turns out they were actually already in negotiations with running back C.J. Spiller, but they hadn't received a commitment when Niall Davis became available, and they were like, go get Davis. Only after a few hours, though, they agreed to terms with Spiller and then said, never mind, get him out of here. So then he's like, okay, maybe, you know what? The Chiefs, Jamal Charles had to go on the IR. Spencer Ware has a concussion. Kendrick West is probably the lead back this week if Spencer Ware can't be cleared. Maybe I have a shot to go back to Kansas City. Kansas City signs Bishop Sankey. So I feel bad for this guy. This is like video game stuff. Like they're treating him like he's not a human. They're releasing him like he's just some name in a game. I felt so bad for Niall Davis, and I like Niall Davis. He played very great that first year Jamal Charles went down. He was a good back when given the shot. So I'm surprised they didn't re-sign him over in Kansas City and rather go for somebody like Bishop Sankey, who never really got anything going in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think they signed him off the practice squad.
Or signed him to the practice squad.
Or whatever. Yeah. That's... Your career is... Okay, let me rephrase this. Okay. All right. Now Davis got cut with 2 teams in less than 2 weeks and can't even get a job now in the NFL because of Bishop Sankey. Wow, your career has gone downhill. If your original team goes for a guy that never got anything going in the NFL with Tennessee, and then you're over here on the street. I don't know. I feel bad for him, because no one should be. No one. He didn't get treated fairly.
There's this website I just saw. So it's NFL Retweet. It's a Twitter account. It said Niall Davis's highlights with the Jets, and it's a picture. It's a GIF from the Simpsons
yes,
show.
Yeah, that one.
And
yes.
so Grandpa walks in, hangs his hat up, walks in a circle, grabs his hat, walks in a circle.
I like that.
Walks out.
I like that meme. I love that meme. They use that for a lot of things.
He walks in, hangs it up, walks in a circle, grabs it, walks back out. Now, one fortunate thing before you go ahead and Jeremiah, he will get paid.
He will.
For 1 week, so not all is lost,
Okay.
but that has to be tough. Like you said, they signed Bishop Sankey from the Patriots practice squad, so he is on their active roster as far as I know. Who knows if they bring Niall back, though, because, with Jamal out, if this, it's not always an easy thing to get over concussions. We've seen it before, especially in a contact sport, so it'll be interesting, to see what happens. Go ahead.
I got a sports reference before I move on here.
Okay.
Now Davis' stint with the New York Jets was shorter than Chris Paul's stint with the LA Lakers. If you don't remember that, then I'm just telling you.
I mean, it was because it lasted hours.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know how many. How many?
Chris Paul was a Laker. Chris Paul was a Laker for like 1 hour, and they got vetoed.
Okay, well, maybe if it was only 1 hour, then yes. Then yes, this was shorter.
Yeah.
I want so badly in like a very sadistic kind of way to like hear the phone calls or see the text messages between him and his agent, because it had to have been something like, "Hey, so you're going over here." Okay, that's
never
right,
mind.
That's fine. And then a couple hours to text him like, "Hey, one more thing." Like, "Oh, what? Do I gotta buy a house over here?" No. Remember we talked about the Jets? Yeah, I'm getting to fly around to New York. Yeah. Well, they play in New Jersey. Yeah, I'm going to go get a plane to New Jersey. It's going to be great. Right. I don't know if you can cancel that flight, but you should probably cancel
no, I'm
that
actually
flight.
boarding right now.
Don't get on the plane. Don't get on the plane. That's a bad idea. Stay where you are. Stay in Green Bay. It's fine. Just stay there.
Well, what, man? They released me.
No,
he got stuck in Wisconsin out of all places, in Green Bay.
Green Bay's not a terrible place to stay. There's worse places, Cleveland, so you can, find, fun things to do, I guess, in Green Bay, but he's probably mad at Green Bay for cutting him, so he's just stuck in the sad cold.
All right, well, anyways, speaking of Cleveland.
Speaking of Cleveland.
The dog pound, you know how Cleveland's riding on the high right now. They got the Cavs, they raised up the banner. They got the Indians playing tonight in Game 7, even though they might blow a 3-1 lead, but still, they're still playing.
And then Sunday's game was a lot to give, fans hope.
Exactly.
Except for the second half, they were every bit in that game. And Josh McCown looked like an MVP.
Yeah, they look like they're about to get the first win.
Yeah, man.
But I'm going to tell you right now, the fans in Cleveland, and the dog pound for that matter, at the Cleveland Browns Stadium, they're going to have to take an L this week. Not just the team, but the whole fan base is going to take an L. Okay, because usually, they have this sign in the crowd that says, this is the dog pound. Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't spelled correctly. It read like this. It read GPODAWUND. I don't know what the heck that means. It's not even a word.
Dyslexia.
So, it's like, G-Duda-One? I don't know. I couldn't read it. If you looked at the picture...
They're trying to spell out dog pound.
Yeah, exactly. They had trouble spelling out dog pound. Really, Cleveland? Come on, man. Come on.
Cleveland.
Cleveland's
they're making history in 3 different ways, right? You got the Cleveland Cavaliers who won the NBA Finals. You get the Cleveland Indians possibly winning the World Series. And you're going to have the Browns making history, possibly going 0-16 and can't get anything right on the field, off the field, anywhere. So that's nice. They get their own kind of history, too.
Okay, well, they got... Actually, I would rephrase that 3 different ways. The Cavs, they won that championship by overcoming a 3-1 deficit against probably one of the best teams in NBA history.
Right.
And, you got the Indians almost blowing a lead,
right.
a 3-1 lead, to the Cubs, who have been the best team.
We'll see if they blow tonight, yeah.
They might, and I'll talk about that on the baseball show.
Uh-huh.
And you got the Browns too, who've been taking L's left and right.
The whole year,
the whole year. For some reason, someone has to suffer, and it has to be the Browns for some reason.
They're very good at that. That's their thing. They're 0-8. Their next game is against the Cowboys. That's an L. At the Ravens, that's an L. The Steelers, that's an L. The Giants, that's an L. The Bengals, L. Bills, L. Chargers, L. Steelers, L.
I don't know. I think they might beat the Steelers.
You're just trying to be mean, man.
But anyway, that's my Why I Live Wednesday. The fans don't know how to spell.
That's very true. I mean, at least those fans don't. All right, go ahead, Anthony.
All right, so with the potential move of the Oakland Raiders, right, because we see the whole thing of like maybe they move to Las Vegas, maybe they stay in Oakland, they're trying to get a new stadium done. You had Jerry Jones basically come out and say, really, if you look at the history of teams moving, this is pretty definitive. There's a pretty bright line right there. They provided for a team the most funding that's ever been funded from third parties, so that's about as strong. LA never really had that powerful of an influence, blah, blah, blah. Basically saying that this move to Las Vegas is probably going to happen is pretty definitive, right? It's kind of like the key headline coming out of the story, which means they're going to move to Las Vegas. This is basically how it's going to go because Jerry Jones kind of has that much kind of sway with the owners. He's kind of the most powerful of the owners. He's been there for a while, and you basically don't argue with Jerry Jones. So we're going to have the Las Vegas Raiders coming in a few years. That's going to be fun. I can't think of a team any better to be the first NFL team in Vegas than the Raiders. I think it would only have been better if Al Davis was still alive, because Al Davis is known for basically trying to move teams whenever he basically didn't like what was going on. He moved from Oakland to L.A., from L.A. back to Oakland, and in the meantime, he literally took millions of dollars, this isn't a joke, from teams from cities in Los Angeles say like, oh yeah, if you give me a few million, I'll see if I can move there. And then they gave him millions of dollars. He's like, yeah, never mind, I'm not going to move there. And just kept the money. Like just gangster style, like, nah, it's cool, but, you know, I appreciate your money. I'm going to keep your money. We're going to stay. And then he did it with Sacramento, too. I think Sacramento also was like, yeah, we'll give you some money to see if you want to do it. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. So what's your option? No, I'm not going to do it. But I gave you – I know what you did. So now you get the Las Vegas Raiders. That's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get a Davis still running the team, you know, and I'm in. I'm in for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. Alex is clearly not a fan. You know, I'm still kind of deciding if I would like it or not because, you know, the Oakland Raiders, who I'm going to talk about in my For Real segment, they're finally have a good product in Oakland, even though the stadium is bad. It's probably the worst venue.
The stadium is so bad.
Probably
it's not
the worst.
Bad.
It's the worst venue in all of sports.
Yes.
Not just North America. I think in the world, maybe, if I want to go that far.
Even the stadiums that they built for like the Olympics like a decade ago that haven't been used in about a decade are better than the Coliseum. The Coliseum has sewage. That's all you really have to say.
So, but definitely in
North America, got cracks and it leaks.
Definitely in North America, it's probably the worst sports venue. I think we can all agree on that. I was kind of exaggerating when I'm comparing it to the world here. And speaking of Al Davis, you know, he wanted the reason why he kept. Well, not the main reason, but I think the reason why... Well, he was throwing
double middle fingers to Rozelle at the time, right? That's kind of was his thing. He's just like, oh, you want me to stay here? Bleep you, I'm going over here.
I think the reason why he kept moving his team everywhere is because he never got his stadium. And, you know,
right.
His son is actually doing what Al Davis wanted to do, is get a new stadium. And he's really close to doing that in Las Vegas. And if you see the stadium, Las Vegas, it looks pretty good.
Well, yeah.
To me, it's state-of-the-art. Looks good.
But that's how it's going to work. Yeah, they got the new Sacramento arena down here for the Kings. That looks amazing. So
I've never been in it yet, but I heard really good things about the arena.
But if you build something brand new, you're going to build it state of the art. You're going to spend near $1 billion. I think it's some $700 million. It's just what the contribution from the state of Nevada is going to give to them. So it's going to be over $1 billion probably for the arena stadium itself. Yeah, if you spend that much money, it's going to be everything that looks just insane and just stuff you've never seen before.
But I do want to point something out is that there's a huge fan base for the Raiders in Nevada. We know Raider Nation, they have fans everywhere.
It's not far away from LA.
Exactly that, too. They're one of those, well, the Raiders in general are one of those teams that have fans all across the nation.
Right.
They're like one of those teams. And I do think it can be a really good fit. There's a lot of money to be made, you know, like kind of like not in the press box, but the luxury boxes and all that, especially in Nevada with the, you know, the big ballers and the shot callers there. So I do think it's a potential good fit. The thing that really worries me is about the, you know, the fans in the Bay Area not being able to watch their team now since they're good, even though the stadium is pretty bad.
And also you have the thing of the Golden State Warriors are going to move from Oakland to San Francisco in a few years. So Oakland's basically, assuming the Raiders do actually go to Las Vegas, they're going to lose both of their teams. And the A's
thought about moving one time, and I still think they would. They thought about moving to San Jose.
Right.
So, everyone's trying to get out of Oakland. which I'm not surprised in a way because of the economy of that city.
Well, it's a stadium. It's like if the stadium was better, that'd be fine. I mean, Detroit has teams, and Detroit's Detroit. So like, it's not the economy so much; it's just the place they play in is just a dump.
Exactly, it's the worst venue in all of North American sports.
Right.
You're not wrong about that. I'll tell you what. Yeah. I would say it was up to next to Candlestick until Candlestick got demolished.
I actually like Candlestick, even though
it was out of date.
Even though
it was nice, but it was out of
even
date.
Though it was out of date, I did enjoy my time there when I went to Candlestick.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people did. But anyways, I enjoyed our time there on that segment, but it's time to continue on to the next segment. So we're going to take our last break. We're going to come back, and we are going to talk for real in just a moment here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. Okay, so we're going to go kind of the for real segment. We're going to see either teams or sports, teams themselves, or the players see who we think is for real, if or not, if they're a good team, if they're a bad team. So from my perspective, my thing, I'm going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs are 5-2. They look pretty good. If you actually go back to last season, they're 15-2 in their last 17 games because they won 10 straight to end the year. The reason why I'll say for real or not is because the losses they have, they lost to Pittsburgh. Fine, understandable. You also lost to Houston. Houston stinks. You have an overtime win against the Chargers. You have a good win against the Jets. They are the Jets. You barely beat New Orleans, and you barely beat Indianapolis. Well, actually beat Indianapolis by 16. That's actually a decent win. But you have these things coming up right now. They'd be in the wild card if the season ended right now. You got some easier games coming up against Jacksonville, Carolina, Tampa. But then you get Denver, Atlanta, Oakland. You get Denver again towards the end of the year. What about Jeremiah? Alex, you think they're for real?
I think it's a possibility.
I think they are. You know, they play really good defense, and they play really they play offense very effectively. And I know they might not have Alex Smith for the next game,
right?
But Nick Foles played really good, in relief last Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts. Because remember, Nick Foles did come over to Kansas City because of Andy Reid of his time in Philadelphia,
right?
So I do think they're for real in the sense, and I do like their wins that they had. And I know they lost against Houston, but Houston is the top of their division right now. I know they're
because someone has to be at the top of that division.
Someone has to. Someone has to win that division for some reason. And they did beat Oakland, but Oakland, for some reason, they're not the same team at home. But I will talk about them in a little bit. And, the Saints, they haven't been a really great team, but they do score a lot of points. So I do think the Kansas City Chiefs are for real. Remember, they won 10 straight to end off the year after starting 1-5 last season, and they are 15-2. That says something to me. This team, they know how to win. They got guys that know how to win. Even Alex Smith, he knows how to win now, which wasn't the case his first 5 years in the league.
Right.
So that kind of his last final years with the Niners kind of rubbed off on him here, even though the Niners are absolutely terrible now. I think they're for real. I think they're a legit playoff team. I don't know how far they will go. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender in that sense. But as far as playoffs, yeah, I think they're for real.
You only have the leading leading receiver on the team is Travis Kelce, and he only has 377 yards. So offensively, they're not.
Well, I'm not saying they don't blow. I'm not saying they don't throw it over the top. I'm saying that they play it very effectively, well enough to win the game.
Sure.
They don't turn the ball over at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that they're blowing teams out. They're not going to be that team to score 40 points a game. They're just not that team. They run the ball pretty effectively. Even though they may not have Spencer Ware, they have a couple problems there. But they find ways to run the ball. They play solid defense.
Their defense sound. With D4, Derek Barry,
they're very sound.
Marcus Peters.
Don Terry Poe. Don't forget Don Terry Poe.
You can't forget the Poe, man.
Is he the one that had the giant hug with Goodell on the draft day?
Yeah, he picked him up and was broke?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was broke through him.
But anyways, I do think they're for real as a playoff team, but not a Super Bowl contender, because I just don't think they have the offense to compete with the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have the defense. I just don't think they can go very deep into the playoffs.
Sure. All right.
Understandable.
Okay. Well, I got to talk about another team in the AFC West here, and that is the Oakland Raiders. And I do think this team is for real. And they have the best road record in the league at 5-0. These guys are the road warriors. They play really well on the road. And look at the 2 losses that they have are at home. They lost to Atlanta 35-28. I think that's kind of a good loss because, Atlanta has been pretty good this year. They had a hot start, and they look like they're about to win the NFC South as of right now. They did lose to the Chiefs, who we just talked about, but the Chiefs are also a very good team. And then they have practically the biggest game they played in over a decade this Sunday night when they're facing Denver at the Coliseum. I think this team is pro. Regardless if they lose this Denver game or not, I think
they will.
I do think this Oakland Raider team is still a legit playoff team. I think they're for real. They're 5-0 on the road. That says something to me.
I think they're for real on the road. I think they're going to lose this Sunday night game against the Broncos because I think the Broncos are a better overall team and they're playing at home, the Raiders. I think they might split the series and win one on the road over there in Mile High.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean they've shown that they are a good team, but they can't win at home, and I don't understand it. To be fair, the teams they lost to weren't exactly amazing teams at home either. So I think that this team definitely has the makings of a team that can be good and for real. And I think they just haven't shown me enough consistency to be like, yeah, they're for real. They can't win at home, and down the stretch they have a lot of home games because they've already had 5 away games, only 2 home games. So they got some work to do to make themselves a complete team. When that happens, yeah, they very well could be a for real team.
I think they're a legit playoff team. They play really great offense when it comes to passing. Derek Carr went from a quarterback who you think that can pull it off to a quarterback who can pull it off. And this team can't run the ball still, and I took that into account. Don't worry. This team can't run the ball. This defense
not consistently at all.
This defense is still shaky.
Yes.
But I've been seeing something. They beat teams that they're supposed to beat, and there's just something different about this group I've seen in years
But
past.
see, the big thing that separates you from being a elite team and a good team is beating the teams that you're not supposed to beat. Beating the Broncos this weekend. Beating, I would say the Panthers aren't a team to beat this year. Beating the Broncos again to end the year. I mean, honestly, their schedule looks kind of weak to end the year. They have the Broncos, the Texans, the Panthers, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Colts, and the Broncos again to end the year. It's kind of weak.
No, don't get me wrong. I don't think the Raiders are a Super Bowl team. I never thought that. And what's to say that the Raiders go 13-3? I still wouldn't buy into them as a Super Bowl contender. But they're a real legit team. I do think you can't overlook these guys anymore. Obviously, they're 6-2 for a reason.
I think the biggest thing is they have 4 straight home games coming up. If they can do something in those, if they can show me that they can win at home, despite them
the
being
Monday
not
night
the
game
strongest.
against Houston is in Mexico City. So technically,
you're right. I forgot.
So technically,
that.
they got 3.
Okay, so they have 3 home games in the next 4,
Yeah.
and then the Mexico City game. So all bets are off on that one. They will be the home team in that one.
I do think, out of these 4 next games, I have them losing to Denver as well. I just think Denver is a better team. I still think they
can beat Denver away to end the year.
I think they can, which could still be for the division league, in my opinion. It still can be.
I mean, they have 2 games against the Chiefs. 1 game remaining against the Chiefs to really decide. They lost to them last time to really decide who can take this by the horns. Because, like you said, they're in first place of the AFC West, and then from there, it's pretty tight. They're at 6-2. Denver's at 6-2. And whoever wins this game on Sunday is going to be in first place. And then Kansas City's right behind them.
And in that Kansas City game on the December 8th, it's actually a Thursday night game, so we finally have a legit
that'll be
Thursday
legit.
night.
Yeah,
Thursday
that'll
night
be
game.
legit. Other than the Thanksgiving games, yeah.
And I do think they can beat Houston and Mexico City. They can beat Carolina at home. Buffalo will probably be a tough game for them. Indianapolis they can beat at home. So, the fact that they are 5-0 says something to me, but they need to find ways to put it all together at home. I just don't know why this team can't. They're 1-2 at home. I just don't know what it is, but I still think this team is good enough to be a playoff contender.
What do you think?
So you look at it where, assume they're going to win the games that they should win, right? Because you talk about they can beat the teams they should, maybe not against teams they can't. But that would basically mean, you're 6-2, you beat the Texans, you should probably beat them. You beat the Panthers, you beat either the Bills or the Chiefs, the Bills or the Chargers, depending on whichever game that, and then the Colts. That's 4 wins. They get you to 10 wins. That'll get you a wild card, if nothing else, probably in the AFC, so they can make the playoffs with that. Like you said, Latavius Murray's not doing very well. He's the leading rusher on the team, but he only has 279 yards. But it's basically just Derek Carr bombing out to Amari Cooper. That's basically their offense, which has worked.
And that kind of worries me about this team a little bit. I just feel like they might rely too much on Carr a little bit.
Well, but you kind of have to with that whole thing, right? He's not Aaron Rodgers where you can rely and you'll feel okay about it, but he's got Amari Cooper and he's got Michael Crabtree. He has people on the team that he could actually rely on that you can feel good about. The losses they lost to the Falcons, which are kind of like a sort of good team. You don't know how good, but they're a good enough team. And then the Chiefs is a division rival, right? So those two kind of things. You said, why are they 1-2 on the road? But it's only 3 games, right?
That is true.
So, and the one win that you do have, you have it against the Chargers, which was a very close game. A lot of their games this year they've been really close. Of those 5 wins they have on the road, the Saints they won by 1, the Titans they won by 7, the Ravens they won by 1. And the the Buccaneers, they won by 6 in overtime. So all of those games basically have been really, really close. They've just been lucky enough to come out and get the win. The Saints game, they basically won because they basically decided, all right, whatever, we're going to go for 2. So.
Yeah, I get what you mean by that. I think, like I said, this next few weeks are really going to be determining factors, I think, if they're a for real team or not. Because you got a big game on Sunday. You have equally big games throughout those weeks leading up to the Chiefs game and the Charger game within the division. So.
I'm telling
3
you,
of your last 4 games
I'm telling you this.
division.
If somehow Oakland beats Denver at home on Sunday night, then there should be no question that this team is for real. If they beat Denver.
No.
You still think so? I think
I still think so because
if
Denver's
they beat
not Denver.
If they beat
last
Denver,
year.
I think they're for real. I don't think there's a question about it.
I think there's a question still because that's one more win. I mean, like I said, I still think they're a good team, but you're beating a team whose offense still stutters and their defense is good, but it's been exposed a bit this year because their offense has put them on the field more often. So I still think I don't think one game will decide that they are and they aren't because it's not like this is the same team that won the Super Bowl last year.
What happens if the Raiders happen to win the rest of their games? Are you going to say
the rest of their games?
Let's just say hypothetically.
Yeah, if they go 14-2.
Yeah, if they go 14-2, then duh.
Okay.
Yeah, they're elite.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's 2 losses all year.
Okay, because you're making it seem like no matter what, they're never going to be for real. That's
not what
okay.
I mean.
No,
I mean, if they beat the Broncos, that doesn't mean they're all of a sudden for real. The Broncos aren't the class.
What's it going to take for you to decide if this team's for real?
They need to win these stretch of home games.
Okay, so if they win Denver, Carolina, and Buffalo, I'm not counting the Houston game because
don't count that one.
So if they beat Denver, Carolina, and Buffalo, then
they'll be sitting at 9-2.
If they can be 10-2 going into Kansas City, then you'd say for real.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
because
right.
if they say, listen, they can be an elite team without winning their division because of how good this division's playing, but I can't say they're for real because the for real makes me think that they're for real going to do something. They're going to win this division. They're going to enter the playoffs. I think they need to win these games upcoming to tell me that they are for real. Not just one game. They need to make it a consistent thing.
I do think they can beat these teams.
I'm not saying they don't. My only issue is they lost to they beat the Buccaneers. It was 30-24. It was almost a tie. They beat the Jaguars. Not bad. They lose to the Chiefs.
I think that
they barely beat the Chargers. They barely beat the Ravens.
The Chargers are a good team.
I'm just saying they haven't won a lot of games outright. So when I look at a team that's for real and I look for the eliteness of them, yes, they've won the games they're supposed to, but how many games have they won that they weren't expected to win?
I think that.
And when you say you want them, and when you say you want them to be,
I think the first game against the Saints, I didn't think we expected.
I expected them to win that game.
I did, but a lot of people didn't.
I think if they win this game, this Sunday game, this is the first game that I can honestly say this is a game they're expected to lose. Based off of who they're playing and where they're playing.
And when you talk about elite, what do you mean by elite? They're not the Patriots. The Patriots are the elite team in the NFL.
Yeah, I know.
If they walked in and beat the Patriots in Foxborough, that's a game I could say win one game
Okay, this team is not anywhere close to being the
Right.
Patriots.
And
I'm not going to go that far.
That's all I'm saying is that's one team where you can beat
and they're not
that
the
one
Steelers
game.
when they got Ben or something like that. Like they're not one of those like upper like best teams.
And they don't have those teams on their schedule, unfortunately, for them to prove it.
Yeah, I just mean that the Broncos aren't good enough to be one game. All of a sudden, they're for real.
Yeah, I would like to before we leave. If you go on ESPN.com's Raider page, there is a picture of a fan.
The one with his arms up in the air?
Yes. He's very well. He has a sign.
I flew 2.78 miles, didn't pay rent, and missed work to see us win. Hashtag Raider Nation.
That is on the Raiders page on ESPN. So many people have said this. You are now fired from your job that you didn't go to. You are now evicted from the rent you did not pay.
Yeah, no more rent for you.
No more rent for you. Like, I love this sign so much. Like, congratulations to you. You won. Also, everyone that you know has seen this picture, and now they're,
Now you're done.
Now you're done.
Oh, Lord. Well, anyways, that's a good – we'll have to have that as a full discussion later on. My last but not least, for real, we'll just talk about USC real quick. USC has won 4 straight games. You're looking at a guy with Coach Clay Helton that was looked at to be somebody who was on the hot seat. And since their loss to Utah, which was a close game, 27-31, they have not lost, beating Arizona State, 21 ranked Colorado at the time, Arizona, and Cal, all leading into this weekend's matchup against Pac-12 opponent Oregon. Clay Helton, I think, did a job to secure his job for next year. But is this team for real? Is this a team that can go home, beat Oregon, and go to Washington and possibly upset the number 5 team in the nation?
I've said this before, and when I was looking at Washington's upcoming schedule, they play Cal and then they play USC. I thought those are 2 games they can possibly be upsetted in the next 2 games, the next 2 weeks. Those are 2 games I was looking at the Washington schedule. So I do think potentially they could upset Washington on the road. This team's been really good on offense the past 2 weeks. They got more than 45 points. And actually the 3 of the last 4 games, they scored at least 40 points. Even against Colorado, who are a tough team this year, they're a better team, they beat them by 4 points. So I do think when it comes to college and when it comes to for real, it's a little different for me. It depends. Their losses that they have, they're not really good losses. And I know they play Alabama. They got smoked in the first game of the year, and I kind of expected that. So I'm like, okay, Utah State, I expect them to win. Stanford, they had no chance in that game at all. And then Utah, that was a close loss. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, they're 1-3. Maybe they're not going anywhere this year. And then they have looked better ever since. But when you look at the Pac-12, it's not as strong as other conferences. And I know all these teams have potential to score points. Most of these teams don't play defense as well. That's the thing that says something about the Pac-12. So maybe if they happen to finish the year on a winning streak, they'll get them to a really good bowl game. That'll probably be it. Heading to next year, we might have to probably talk about them as being for real or not. I do think this team is mainly playing for next year. I can't really say if they're for real this year. It's kind of hard for me to see this team go anywhere this year, even though if they might win the rest of their games. So
I got you.
Yeah, and don't forget they play Notre Dame to end the season too. Even though Notre Dame is not as good a team, that's still going to be a tough game for them.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's one of those things of what do you want to call them when you say they for real, right? Because they can win 3 of their last 4 games, right? Oregon's bad, UCLA is meh, and Notre Dame.
UCLA has their quarterback hurt for the entire season.
Right, Rosen's hurt, and then you get Notre Dame, who even though they beat Miami last week, they're not a good team. At least not as good as we thought they would be. So let's say they go 3-1, they finish 8-4. That's not bad considering they started off the season 1-3, and it's something that at least will keep the coach there. And you build for next year, but it's nothing to where it's, let's just say they win those last 3 of the last 4, they're going to finish 7-3 in their conference. They're not going to win the South because they'll probably go to Utah or Colorado, so they're not going to be in the Pac-12 championship game. They're going to go to the Meineke Car Care Bowl or one of those random bowls that means nothing.
Yeah.
And, there'll be a team that's just okay, cool. They had a solid enough season, which isn't exactly up to USC standards. But, yeah, if they go 8-4, it looks nice. They got on the right track, after starting terribly. But as far as like competing for anything specific and even going into next year, I think it's just like there'd be an okay team that finished with a solid record.
Yeah, I can't. It's tough for me to see if this team is for real because I don't really see them going anywhere this year. Like when you think of teams of for real in college, are they? I think of them as maybe competing for like a top playoff spot, maybe a top 10 team.
Right.
Like for example, I think Nebraska can be like a really good team we can use in this segment. But when USC, I thought they probably should have never hired Clay Helton to begin with, but he has kind of turned around this season. So basically, I do think USC is a team basically playing for next year. It's basically playing for next year, and don't forget the Pac-12 is even tough next year as well. A lot of these teams play a lot of offense. They don't play defense, but don't forget Washington. They have a lot more experience now, so I do think they are playing for next year.
All right, I can dig it.
Yeah.
As always, I'd like to thank you guys for sitting through the wide left and the for real segments with us today. Tomorrow we will be back to preview the Thursday night football game as we head into the week of football. It'll be all three of us again, as always. So we'd like to thank you for listening today to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. As always, I'm Alex.
I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And us three will see all of you tomorrow. You guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you then.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.